In this video today, I'd like to share with you some encouragement and some tips on one of the most vital things about growing plants on your porch, and that's keeping them well watered. There's all kinds of information available about how to water your plants the best and when to water them, but the real key thing for me is to pay attention. So tip number one, pay attention to your plants. How do they look? Do they look like they need watering? This morning I didn't water the plants on our porch because I wanted to be able to show you what to look for in some of the plants here. So on our tomato plants at this time of the day, because they didn't get any water this morning, they're looking a bit sad. The leaves are starting to droop a little bit and they are showing signs of needing water. So pay attention to your plants. Have a look at the leaves. Have a look at the surface of the soil in the pot, and even just feel a little bit under the surface to see what it's like. If it's still moist, maybe they don't need watering. If it's bone dry, then almost certainly they're going to need watering. Tip number two is you've got to consider the type of plant. So some of the plants up here on our porch, our adenium, our desert roses, they can sit in dry soil for quite a long time and it not be a problem. My tomatoes and other things, definitely not. They like to have more frequent watering. So it's also about looking at your plants, but knowing your plants, knowing what type of plant you're growing and what the conditions are that it's going to need more water or less water. Succulents don't need much water. A lot of other plants will need good watering or deep watering once every now and again. Other plants like to have a more frequent watering. And how dry your plants get is determined by a number of things as well. Outdoors on the porch, they're going to possibly be in the sunshine for a good part of the day, but they might also be shaded, depending on the orientation of your porch and where the sun is. The other factor determining how fast or slow your plants will dry out is the wind. If you're in a particularly windy place, or if it's a windy time of the year, then the plants are going to dry out a lot more quickly. The water will evaporate a lot more quickly, so you might need to pay a bit more attention to them. And then you've got things like pot size and pot type. I've got these little chilies growing in a little plastic pot that's maybe 10 centimeters across. These are going to need a little bit more frequent watering than some of the other plants that I've got in bigger pots because the water will evaporate more quickly. And then also growing in a plastic pot with a solid container, it's only going to drain out the bottom and evaporate out the top, nowhere else. But if you're growing in like our 20-baht baskets or in, say, terracotta, then the water is going to seep through these two different types of pots, whereas a more solid pot or a ceramic pot, a plastic pot, you're not going to lose as much water as you will do through some of the other types, your terracotta or your more open plastic pots. And one other tip that's related to watering is using some mulch. I've just got a basket of leaves here that I've crushed up somewhat so that I'm going to be able to then put them around the base of my plants. Larger leaves like this, you want to break those up a little bit because they are going to, if you water directly, if you put them in as they are and then water directly on top of them, the water's just going to run off. So if you break them up a little bit and put them around the base of your plants, then this is going to help your water retention. You might not have to water so frequently because this layer of mulch will help prevent so much evaporation. And if you don't have access to dry leaves, maybe if you live in a condo or an apartment where you've only got a very small area and no outside garden, use the last carton that a delivery came in and make use of the cardboard. So you could again tear it up, break it up into smaller pieces, and then place this around the base of your plants, and it will do the same basic thing as the leaves are doing. Make sure to take the tape off. Don't leave the plastic tape, and if you can, use a box that is not heavily printed and certainly one that's not laminated with anything. So these soft brown corrugated cardboard boxes are ideal, and eventually they'll break down and just help to add another layer of nutrient to your soil. And when you do go to water your plants, water them gently, get a watering can in there so you can water around the plant so that all of your soil is going to be moist underneath and the roots of the plants are not going to be struggling to find water. And if you haven't mulched your plants, you might find that the surface of the pot plant, the soil, is a bit hard. You can just use a stick or a bit of a nail or anything like that just to rough up the surface of the soil gently. Don't rough it up too deep in because then you might be disturbing the roots. But as you break up the hard surface of the soil, this will also help the water to penetrate into the soil and be absorbing it much easier. And one other thing that I like to do is just if I'm sensing that the soil's a little bit hard, a little bit dry, then I'll water just a little bit, and I'll do 2 rounds. I'll go around and water each of my plants just a little bit, then I'll come back a few minutes later and water them again. And I find that the second watering, I'll give them a bit more water than the first time, and it will just help them to absorb and accept that water rather than it just running off. And up here on our porch, we don't have sources under many of our pots. We do under some of them because we're here, we can water them frequently. But if you're in a situation where you're not able to water as frequently as every day, then putting sources to keep a little bit of that moisture, keep a little bit more of that water in the saucer, and then the plant will absorb that more slowly as it needs it. And one more tip that's not necessarily related so directly with the health of your plants, but maybe more with your health or your emotional well-being, is I love to just spend time being really present in the moment as I'm watering my plants and just paying attention to them. Like I said earlier, looking at the leaves, looking at how they're doing, seeing if there's any disease or any bugs or anything that's eating them, but just so that I can be centered and quiet and just enjoy being with my plants. Usually I'm watering in the morning or in the evening, so it's a lovely time to be out in the garden and just taking time to just appreciate being with nature. And this is such an important part of enjoying your garden and enjoying to really have a very positive experience with what you're growing and enjoying them the most. And I'm pretty sure that as you are focused, as you are positive about what you're doing, then your plants are going to feel that and enjoy it as well. So just be encouraged to be mindful, to be thinking positive thoughts, to be present in the moment and just really enjoy watering your garden and looking after your plants. And I'm sure they will love it and they will thrive because of it. Now, if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing up here in our porch garden and keep up to date with these videos, please check out this playlist next. Thanks very much for watching.